D. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, my assignment was to say something about Jagannatha. Now that could go on for decades, so I had to kind of trim it down a little bit. And I'd like to describe a few things. One is the origin of Jagannatha. Those of you who are not too much steeped in the Krishna conscious literature that Srila Prabhupada has given us, it may be a little puzzling that we worship Krishna in his form, his threefold bending form there, human-like form, Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. But then when you get over to this altar, they look like they didn't finish carving them or something, right? I mean, there's a, which is exactly what the story is about. And what I'm going to read about, first of all, I'd like to mention, there is a wonderful play written by Tamal Krishna Goswami back in the late 90s, I think it was, called the Jagannath Priya Natakam. Jagannath Priya Natakam. Has anyone heard of that before, besides a few souls? So this was a very wonderful play that he wrote based on the principles of drama that were used by Rupa Goswami in his writing of dramas, and there's a whole art to it. You know, the different emotions, we can get what all the words mean and everything. So he wrote that with that, and he let me participate a little bit. He wanted to have a few poems in there, but they need a little work, so he gave it to me. I was in Miami at the time, and so I got to participate in that book. And those of you who were here, there's a few of us left here, who were here when Rasa Priya made a production of this play. It was absolutely exquisite. We used to, on Janmashtami, we used to be able to have that whole back lot was given to us, and we would have stage up there. And then she produced it with just devotees who were here and some from the North County who participated. And they also did in Laguna Beach. So what that play does, what that play describes, is the origin of Jagannath and the different rasas or leelas and rasas or emotions that are involved with Jagannath, which is not immediately obvious unless you hear the story. So what I did a little research, and on ISKCON Desire Tree. Does everyone know about ISKCON Desire Tree? It's a wonderful site on the internet, where you can hear all kinds of, so many hundreds of lectures from our leading devotees who are leading in the movement. Those who have passed on also, they have many classes on there. And there was an account there of the origin of Jagannath, how Jagannath came to be like that. So I'm going to read from that. It's a little long, hopefully, and then I'm going to also describe how Jagannath deities were so important to the early part of the growing of this movement. They were the first deities in San Francisco in this movement. And Prabhupada started the Rath Yatra 1967. 67, right after he started the movement. So we'll describe a little bit about that. So here's from this very nice site, and it's all bona fide, following in parampara. Because Jagannath does not look like Krishna, people may wonder how he can be Krishna. Scriptures tell the story behind Jagannath's peculiar form. So this is Jagannath's transcendental advent. The Skanda Purana relates how King Indradyumna, he had a quest to find a deity form of Krishna after dreaming of a beautiful blue deity named Nila Madhava. Now Nila is the color of Krishna, Indra Nila. It's a bluish form like a sapphire. The name describes the sapphire color of the deity, Nila. Nila means blue. And Madhava is one of Krishna's names. King Indradyumna sent messengers in all directions to find Nila Madhava. And a Brahmin named Vidyapati returned successful. He discovered that Vishwavasu, a pig farmer, or Sabra, in a remote tribal village, was secretly worshipping Nila Madhava. When Vidyapati later returned to that place with Indradyumna, however, Nila Madhava was gone. King Indradyumna surrounded the village with his soldiers and arrested Vishwavasu. Where's the deity? Then a voice from the sky proclaimed, "Release the Sabra and build a big temple for me on top of Nila Hill." You know what that is? That's in what's now Jagannath Puri. Nilachala. It's called Nilachala. Achala means doesn't move. It's a word for a mountain, right? Or a hill. So Nilachala. Nila Hill. There you will see me, not as Nila Madhava, but in a form made of neem wood. Nila Madhava promised to appear as wood, Daru. Thus he is called the Daru Brahman, or the wood form of God, or the Supreme Spirit. Indradyumna waited by the ocean, where the Lord arrived as a giant log floating toward the beach. Disguised as an old man, Vishwakarma, the architect of the demigods, arrived to carve the deities under the condition that he would remain undisturbed for 21 days. King Indradyumna set him up in a beautiful room to carve the deities, and the artist worked behind locked doors. But before the time period was up, the noise of carving disappeared. He was listening in. He didn't hear it, so he panicked. And out of intense curiosity, Indradyumna opened the doors, and Vishwakarma had disappeared. In the room, the three deities of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra looked as if unfinished, without hands or feet, and Indradyumna became greatly perturbed, thinking he had committed a great offense against the Lord. But that night, Jagannath spoke to him in a dream and reassured him, explaining that he, Jagannath, was revealing himself in that form out of his own inconceivable desire to show the world that he can accept offerings without hands and move around without any feet. So that's part of in the Purana there. So Lord Jagannatha told the king, "Know for sure that my hands and feet are the ornament of all ornaments, but for your satisfaction, you may give me gold and silver hands and feet from time to time." And those of you who are seen, occasionally that you'll see Jagannath, and he's got these beautiful hands. On the cart, or on the altar anyway. Devotees. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Devotees now worship the same unfinished forms of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra in Puri and in temples around the world, due to Prabhupada's great effort of taking the deities. Right now I'm going to tell the story of how the first Jagannath deities manifested in ISKCON. Quite an interesting story. These forms are part of their eternal pastimes. Now, there's another story I'm going to read here, how they came to be in that form. And this is also from the Puranas. The Utkala Kanda of the Skanda Purana gives another account related to Krishna's appearance as Jagannath. Once during a solar eclipse, as we know, read Krishna book and familiar, Krishna, Balaram, Subhadra, and other residents of Dwarka went to bathe in the holy ponds at Kurukshetra. Knowing that Krishna would be there, Srimati Radharani, Krishna's parents, Nanda and Yashoda, and all the other residents of Vrindavan, who were burning in the fire of separation from the Lord, went to meet him. Inside one of the many tents the pilgrims had set up in Kurukshetra, Rohini, Lord Balaram's mother, narrated Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes to the queens of Dwarka and to others. They'd never heard them. The residents of Dwarka are said to be in the mood of opulence, or Aishwarya, and they worship Krishna as the Supreme Lord. But the residents of Vrindavan are in the mood of sweetness, Madhurya, and they have a confidential relationship with Krishna that surpasses awe and reverence because it is based on friendship and love. Rohini's narration was thus extremely confidential, so she posted Subhadra at the door to prevent anyone from entering. Krishna and Balaram came to the door and stood on Subhadra's left and right sides while listening to Rohini's narration of Krishna's intimate Vrindavan pastimes. There were, of course, Krishna's own pastimes as a child, but he was in a different mood in Dwarka. While listening, Krishna and Balaram became ecstatic, and their internal feelings were exhibited externally. Their eyes became dilated, their heads compressed into their bodies, and their limbs retracted. Seeing these transformations in Krishna and Balaram, Subhadra also became ecstatic and assumed a similar form. Thus, by hearing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram, with Subhadra in between, displayed their ecstatic forms of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. So that's two reasons why they appear that way, very ecstatic. Now, when you read that, it said, well, they're drawing their arms. You read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you'll find that Lord Chaitanya also sometimes shows that ecstatic symptom. In great ecstasy, in the mood of Radharani, this is, I guess maybe I'll explain from the beginning, about Lord Krishna's advent. So, at the beginning, very beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I highly recommend that you all, if you don't have a copy of that already, it's 9 volumes, and it's the pinnacle of all devotional literature, of all Vaishnava literature. Prabhupada said there's like a course. You know, you start with Bhagavad Gita, which has all basic philosophy, the ABCs, very, very important. And then the graduate course is the Srimad Bhagavatam, which expands on many of these themes and gives much more details. But the postgraduate is the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which introduces you to the highest explanation of the rasa of Lord Chaitanya and how he took on the mood and the complexion of Srimati Radharani. It's Krishna himself. This we learn in the 3rd verse of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. That his effulgence is the Brahman effulgence, he is the super soul, he is Bhagavan himself. This is the gist of the verse. So how did he come to take on this golden form? That's also explained. Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrsho vanayaiva svadyo yenad buddhamadurima kidrsho vamadiya saukyam chasya mananubhavata kidrsham veti lobat tadbhavadya samajanisha chi garbasindho harindu. So what this means is that this Krishna Das Kaviraj wrote this verse, and as the authors, these great authors sometimes do, they give us insight into the very mind of the Lord. So this is Krishna speaking now in this verse. Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima. So the glory of Srimati Radharani's love for me, Krishna speaking, you see? I can't understand it from my point of view. He was there in Dwarka, and he saw his own reflection in a very shiny pillar, and he was attracted by his own beauty. Who's seen beauty like this before? You know? He said, but he couldn't relish it from his own point of view. He said, oh, Srimati Radharani, she can appreciate it. And then the next line, and don't go into all that, describes, and I also want to taste what she experiences of my beauty and my qualities through the lens of her love. This is a very important concept, is that the more that you're able to become renounced or detached from material attraction and attracted to Krishna, which is the very essence of the whole process of Bhakti Yoga, the more that you do that, the more that you appreciate Krishna's Leela and the different rasas and exchanges of love, you see. But Krishna was saying, from this point of view, as Krishna, I can't really understand my own glories. I want to experience them from Radharani's point of view, You see, and then I'll really be able to taste it. And then I also want to experience the bliss that she feels from loving me and being loved by me. So for all these reasons, he appeared from the womb of Shachi Devi like the moon appears from the ocean in more or less modern times, 535 years ago or so. So that's the internal reason for Lord Chaitanya's coming. Hare Krishna, Haribol. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. No offense. So ecstatic symptoms. So, so that's Lord Chaitanya's coming. So, and he expressed those emotions, those high emotions, revealed mostly in his final stages. All during his advent, he would reveal all these things. But in his last 18 years in Puri, he was always in this highest state of separation, love and separation from Krishna. And just like Radharani's in Vrindavan, Krishna's in Dwarka, and she's feeling devastated in separation. It's a whole mood. But that separation, that extreme pain is the highest pleasure. Who can fathom it? It's inconceivable, but that's the truth. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya in Puri, his mother asked him to stay there so that she would get news. She was devastated when he took sannyas. The father had already passed away from separation from his older brother who took sannyas and went to South India and passed away. And then Lord Chaitanya is also taking sannyas, so I have nobody left. You know, she's in great separation. So she says, okay, at least stay, make your base Puri, Jagannath Puri, which is not that far from Bengal, and I'll get news of you. You know, so he agreed. And after preaching, he went traveling South India, then he went to Vrindavan, and, you know, but then he set up in Puri and he didn't leave anymore. So, but day and night he was enjoying the highest mellows of devotional service of Srimati Radharani Gopis in separation from Krishna. He had Srup Damodar Goswami and he had Ramananda Roy and other intimates. Haridas Thakur was there, Rupa Goswami would visit, you know, it was just and that's all explained in the Antya Leela of this Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in that that section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a passage. I just wanted to see if I can find it here. Yeah. So this is in Madhya Leela chapter 13. Now chapter 13, this describes Lord Chaitanya's dancing in Ratha Yatra. And it's very nice if you can find it. If you don't have the physical book, get online, go to vedabase.io. You have all the books. You can find it. And read this chapter 13, because we just had our little procession here, you know, taking Jagannath out. And one of the things, okay, before I do that, I want to just explain how Jagannath came into ISKCON, his advent in ISKCON. So there were no deities at first. You know, Prabhupada had his, you know the story, he pioneered in New York, he was able to get 26 Second Avenue, found a few sincere followers, you know. And then Mukunda Das at that time, he wanted to go to India. You know, he was married and everything. He was planning to go to India. So he's on the way outdoor, he was initiated. And Prabhupada said, just as he's on his way out, it would be really nice. Mukunda, he said to Srila Prabhupada, you know, it would be really good if you established a temple in San Francisco. It was the height of the hippie era, the summer of love. You know, you can read it in the history books. It was an amazing period. And so Prabhupada said, he turned it around and said, can you please start a center in San Francisco? He's on his way to India, you know. Thought he was anyway. So Mukunda surrendered, and he and his wife and Yamuna went to visit, who later become Shamasunda and his wife Malati. So they all started that center right in the middle of Haight-Ashbury. You know, it was incredible thing. So after, you know, there was a mantra rock dance. I mean, it was incredible. Prabhupada came for that. And then after a few months, he had initiations all along. Jayananda was there. So then Malati, there was all kinds of openings to the east, to India, you know. There was George Harrison had already become interested in meditation, and there was Baba Ram Das and the LSD and everything. So there was in one of the stores there was a big barrel. And in that barrel, there were little figurines of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. You know the story. So Malati, she stole one of them. And she she came and she put it on the desk before Prabhupada, and he offered his obeisances. What is this? You know, they had no idea. So he asked, he said, oh, this is Jagannath. He took that one. Are there any others? He says, yeah, there's a whole barrel. So she went there. She didn't say where she saw. I think she probably bought the other two, probably. So then she had the little figurines, you know. And Prabhupada asked someone, he was a carver, he was a woodsman. And can you carve big versions of this? Sure, you know. So at that time he was still smoking cigarettes, you know. So Prabhupada would come visit him, and he had the cigarette burning on top of the Jagannath, you know. And Prabhupada said, why don't you quit? No, he didn't say it like that. Just try to reduce, you know. Try to be one a day. You know, he knew that was very difficult to eventually get it. So anyway, he was able to carve these beautiful Jagannath deities, which became the first deities in ISKCON. And then, so they were being worshipped. You can see the pictures of that little temple they had, the little skinny room, and everyone was dancing, and this Jagannath up on, you know, presiding over everything. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. So then Prabhupada, you know, took the advantage. Well, you know, when he went back to New York, then he became ill, and they tried to do something in New York and New Jersey, you know, but he needed to get back to India, you know, to Ayurveda and whatever. So he was staying near San Francisco, up the coast a little bit, and he couldn't come down to the temple, all the winding roads, you know, all the hills and everything. But he advised them, you should do a Rath Yatra. There's no question of building a cart. They don't even know how. Put him on the back of a truck. So they had Baladev on one side, and Subhadra on the other, and Jagannath on the back, I believe. And off they went, and they had this down all the way to the beach in Golden Gate Park, you know. So Prabhupada couldn't attend it, but they reported it to him. And that was the first Rath Yatra. So what is the significance there? This is what we did today is a little sample of it. Jagannath takes the trouble. You don't see us carrying Radhagiri Hari outside to the beach. No. They stay here. Although we can have small Gaura deities, we sometimes have, you know, Utsav deities. But Jagannath himself comes off the altar to go to meet the people, to invite them. You see? And in Puri, I was never there for the Rath Yatra. I did visit once, but 1 million people come. Right, pilgrims. It was a little bit scrimped, you know, from the pandemic, obviously. But now they're back and forth. So this is the thing, is that just as Lord Chaitanya, he goes out to the people. He doesn't just stay in a temple somewhere in an ashram and wait for them to come. It's Krishna reaching out to us. And Jagannath is you know, it's so accessible. He's always smiling ecstatically, you know, and it says in the Nectar Devotion, I didn't look up the quote, if someone sees the Rath Yatra pass, you know, then all the karma is eradicated, you know, like that. What to speak of taking part and dancing and chanting. So Jagannath is always here, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, and that was the first deities, then manifested many others, you know. And Prabhupada said, the Mahants in Puri, and they were upset that they were doing Rath Yatra on a different day in a different city. Rath Yatra is here in Puri. Prabhupada said, no, he's Lord of the universe. He's not just Lord of Jagannath Puri, you know. So there are Rath Yatras in northern Florida. Yeah, I used to visit Alatra every year a couple of times. They had a Rath Yatra in St. Augustine I visited, and they had so many other Rath Yatras all over the place. Why not? Everywhere, you know, he's Lord of the universe, right? So that's the wonderful quality of Jagannath. Very accessible, very merciful, and very significant for the development of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we are so happy we were able to do that little Rath Yatra. I don't know if you didn't see me, you were on the beach. I was there at the beginning, but I hadn't had time to prepare this, so I had to go back home. But it was so nice to hear Vrindavan Das leading Kirtan. One of the main Kirtaniyas in our movement. So this is the meaning of Rath Yatra. And of course, Ratha is the cart, the chariot, and hopefully we can resume that. We have a nice chariot there, which is prepared, and we used it every year for many years, and hopefully again this year we'll be able to do it. But then I wanted to read the second reason why Jagannath appeared. Okay, so this has to do with when everyone went to Kurukshetra, there was a solar eclipse. Those of you who read the Krishna book, the pastimes, there was a solar eclipse, which is very auspicious, to go to Kurukshetra and bathe in those lakes that happened when Parshuram killed all the Kshatriyas. So that's why that's part of the reason it's called Dharmakshetra, the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Kurukshetra is a holy place. So the residents of Vrindavan had been pining in separation for many, many years from Krishna. They knew he was in Dwarka, and he, you know, so now they had a chance to go there and to meet him again. You know, the gopis and the cowherd boys and Mother Yashoda, everybody was going. So this relates how that's related to Jagannath. So once during the solar eclipse, Krishna, Balaram, Subhadra, and other residents of Dwarka went to bathe in the holy ponds at Kurukshetra. Knowing that Krishna would be there, Srimati Radharani, Krishna's parents, Nanda and Yashoda, the other gopis, and other residents of Vrindavan, who were burning in the fire of separation from the Lord, went to meet him. Inside one of the many tents the pilgrims had set up in Kurukshetra, Rohini, Lord Balaram's mother, narrated Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes to the queens of Dwarka and others. So they'd never heard them in detail. The residents of Dwarka are said to be in the mood of Aishwarya, or opulence, and they worship Krishna as the Supreme Lord. But the residents of Vrindavan are in the mood of sweetness, or madhurya, and they have a confidential relationship with Krishna that surpasses awe and reverence because it is based on friendship and love. Rohini's narration was thus extremely confidential, so she posted Subhadra at the door to prevent anyone and everyone from hearing. You know. So Krishna and Balaram came to the door and stood on Subhadra's left and right side, listening to this account. Right? And while listening to Rohini's narration of Krishna's intimate Vrindavan pastimes, Krishna and Balaram became ecstatic, and their internal feelings were exhibited externally. Their eyes became dilated, their heads compressed into their bodies, and their limbs retracted. Seeing these transformations in Krishna and Balaram, Subhadra also became ecstatic and assumed a similar form. Thus, by hearing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram, with Subhadra in between, displayed their ecstatic forms of Jagannath, Baladeva, and Subhadra. Now, this sounds, yeah, right, withdraw the arms. I worked on, I've been in ISKCON since 1973, mostly as an editor. And in 1975, we produced the first printing of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I got to work on some chapters in Madhya Lila, Antya Lila, like that. So when you're reading the Madhya Lila, I think there's a chapter near the beginning of the Madhya Lila, which means the intermediate Lila, after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. There's a little summary of the Antya Lila, because Krishnadas Kaviraj was asked to write this when he was a very old man. You know, he's living in Radhakund, you know, and so they asked him, since he's known as Kaviraj. That's not his given name, but that's a name that's given, meaning a king of poetry, very, very skilled in writing. So and very pure, he was very great advanced. So he felt a little health crisis there at the beginning of the Madhya Lila, and he put in a summary chapter of the Antya Lila. It's very interesting. And I think it's in that chapter, I forget exactly now, I think it's in that chapter, where some of these incredible ecstatic symptoms that Lord Chaitanya would exhibit in Puri when he's with, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, and hearing these description of Radharani's separation from Krishna and so on. So there it is. Sometimes he would draw his, I was shocked to read this, he would draw his limbs in his body. How does that work? Even his head, I couldn't believe it, you know. There it is. It's said in the Shastra. So this is what the Jagannath did. This is why, you know, you don't see the arms, although it's he has little arms, but he can have other hands and so forth. So this is an example, you know, a symptom of extremely high and intense emotion, the separation from the Lord. And that's what they were hearing, and they were experiencing, and they were relishing it. So this is what's been given to us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You read the Antya Lila, and there is these wonderful sample verses about, from the Vidagdha Madhava. You know, and some of them are just describing Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna and what that produces. And the most exquisite Sanskrit. aha kamalagandhya. This is a devotee speaking to Krishna, who's baby form, child form, but he's understanding. Aha kamalagandhya at the sounda yavrinde vinahitanayanayam tonmukendo mukunda. Kuchikalasha mukabya mambara knopamamba amba tabamahad utiharshad varshiti chiradaram. This word ahaha is just what it sounds like. It's just amazing. You know, this is just so astounding. I can hardly speak about aha. Oh, come on. Oh, you who have the fragrance of a lotus, or lotus fragrance, Lord, Kamalaganda, at the sounda yavrinde, the sum total of all beauties. Your mother is now looking at your beautiful lotus face, and the result is that the milk is just pouring from her breast and soaking her sari. You know, this is the expression of love. It's very common when she sees Krishna. And so, this is what we've been given. Srila Prabhupada gave us this incredible gift, and Krishna's Kaviraj. So we should take advantage of it. Become serious about Krishna consciousness. Bhagavad Gita is so important because it gets us going, the urgency of it, to understand that we're not these bodies. We're pure spirit. And all of us are temporarily in these bodies, and we're very, very fortunate as human beings. It's already fortunate to become a human being, but to take advantage of that and to try to actually achieve the mission of life. You know, a human life has a point, or as a goal. Just like the word Aryan. Word Aryan, what does it actually mean? Well, Srila Prabhupada says, those who know the spiritual values of life. Those who know the spiritual values of life. Not because it's so easy to fall into material consciousness, because the senses are always demanding, the mind is always demanding, and the atmosphere, especially in Kali Yuga, is so polluted and so contaminating that we can easily fall under the spell of Maya, that we can somehow enjoy in this body sense gratification and become happy that way. But those attachments, those Hare Krishna, Prabhus, Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Hold it. Yeah, just quiet. So those attachments for the material is what keeps us coming back again and again. And we learn in the Bhagavad Gita that we have likely been in this material world for millions and millions of births, millions of years. Because if we blow it in the human form and we do things that are very sinful against the laws of God, then we can very easily lose this human form of life. We don't get damned, whatever. There's nothing like that. There is hell, but it's not permanent. But it can be very excruciating. And then after that, we come up again to the species, up to the human form of life again. So there's an urgency to it. And many of you have heard my talks before, and I'll quote this verse again. It's so cogent. Can we close that? It's a little noisy. Labdva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manusham artadam anityam api adhira. Turnam yateta napateta namrityayava nikshe yasaya vishaya kalusarva taksyat. So labdva means we have attained. Sudurlabam, that which is very rare, difficult to attain. You know, I like to take walks, and sometimes I walk around the block, you know, do a little circumambulation. And on the corner there's a grocery store, and they always have the lottery numbers in there, you know. Oh, $500 million. That's nothing. It's going over $1 billion a couple of times. How tempting that is. Maybe I'll get lucky, you know. Maybe Krishna will give me the numbers. No. We don't do that. We don't do that. But that's nothing. We've all won the lottery already. We're winners. Not only are we human beings. Come on, you guys. If you can't pay attention, then go out. But we have some interest anyway in Krishna consciousness. We've been exposed, very rare amongst all billions and billions of people in this world. They'd be interested enough to come and chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, hear, you know, this fool speaking for a while. So anyway, but this verse says, Labdhasudam bahusambhavante manusham. You've attained the human form, manusham. And it is artadam, very important word. Arta is value, something of value. It often means money, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But not the real value of the human form of life is that the intelligence. You can understand these things, and you can direct your energies toward breaking free from the prison house of birth and death and old age and disease, and going back home, back to God. At Prabhupada's immortal phrase, back home. That's where we came from. That's where we belong. We're all exiles here. You can't be happy. Prabhupada gave you the example of the fish out of water. You know, if a fish is thrown up on the beach, they can't live for more than a few minutes, seconds or something, unless some merciful person throws them back, right? They're out of their element. So we're out of our element. We're spiritual beings. We belong to the spiritual world. All of this old age, disease, and death is for us. And all of these attachments we form are simply Maya's trick. It's a big con job. That somehow you can be happy, don't you know that? So here's a nice verse for you. I put it into a poem. This is, there's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in one of his lectures, he said it's written by Madhavendra Puri. It's spoken by Lord Chaitanya at the beginning of his instructions to Sanatana Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why is Chaitanya Charita so important? Because not only does it describe the highest levels of ecstasy and beautiful poetry, but it gives you the philosophy. It embodies the Gaudiya philosophy in the most concise and beautiful and understandable form, especially with Prabhupada's commentary. So it's a very wonderful book. So the most extensive description of instructions is Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami, his primary disciple, along with Rupa Goswami. So near the beginning, he cites this verse. Kama dinam katina katita palita durnideshas tesham jata mayana kaduna nattapano pashantihi utthrijaitan Hatayadapate sampratam labna buddhis tvamayatak shadanamamayam mamniyung svatmadasye. The Sanskrit language is a beautiful meter. So here's as accurate as I could get it. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy. Yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So very, very, rich verse. Kamadina. Kamadina means lust. It often means sex desire, but it can mean any intense desire. The word kama means that. Etc. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, all these different things in different modes of nature. So they're like, they make demands on us. They say, no, do this, go here. This person insulted you, punch him in the mouth, There's all of these demands, But that's not us. That's not the soul. That's the conditioned mind and intelligence speaking. So now, this devotee is saying, Madhavendra Puri, but now my intelligence has awoken. How? By good association. Everything begins with sadhu sangha. And we should know that if we open one of Srila Prabhupada's books and we read it with interest and with intelligence, attention, we are getting Srila Prabhupada's association. And not only his association, the Bhagavad Gita. You know who he dedicates the book to? Who can tell me? Baladev Vidyabhushan. Thank you. Because he based a lot of his commentary on Baladev's commentary to the Gita. You see? So this is parampara, this is the disciplic succession. Not that I independently will figure everything out, but I accept the words of the great realized souls. And I myself, and then Krishna, he appreciates that and he gives me my own realization, which Prabhupada also gave. There's no question. So, Srila Prabhupada is such great pains to produce these books. The history, read the Prabhupada Lilamrita, that's a real classic. We should, the story of Srila Prabhupada, how the movement, how it began. The first whole volume is Prabhupada's growing up, a lifetime in preparation. So to print these, to create these books, to make these books was a tremendous effort on Srila Prabhupada's part. He would get up in the middle of the night and dictate, a few hours before everything would happen, And so we should take advantage of that. We've been given the Bhagavad Gita class. It's free, doesn't cost anything. And if you can't make it on 7:15, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, personally, they're online, through the magic of YouTube. And we're just reading now in the middle of the 4th chapter. And we've been through, since I've been here, is 89, about 4 or 5 times. So it's all invaluable information, and we should take advantage. So the verse continues, it says, Artadam, this human form alone can give the ultimate goal of life. But like all, anityam, it's not eternal, it's temporary. So one has to be dhira. Dhira, be sober-minded and really consider what's the best use of my time in this human form of life. How can I spend it best? So there he says, Turnam. Turnam means don't delay. Maya's always out there, cover you again. Turnam, yateta, strive. As long as you're still alive, Turnam yatetam anumritya, the death is always on our shoulder. So nikshayasaya, strive for the ultimate goal, which is simply being purification of our consciousness so that our original pure love for Krishna can awaken. This is such a wonderful verse by Lord Chaitanya. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kamunoi. This eternal perfection of prema, pure love for Krishna, which has everything comes in its train. Liberation, going back to Godhead, realizing our original form, eternal life, bliss. It's all coming from developing this prema. And the best way to do it? Harinam! Harinam! I don't get out so much on Harinam like I used to. And it was just such a wonderful experience, just being out there, and people and being on the beach. And that's the essence of it. The whole thing is Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gataranyata. One of the first verses you can memorize. It takes about 2 minutes. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can never be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, "O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow." So that last line is from the Trinadapi Sunichena verse. There's a whole culture. The Shikshastika, if you just contemplate that. Anyway, I can go on. But I'm just imploring you, please take this process seriously. The world is so crazy. Let's face it. Just the weather. Let's think of climate change. I've been here since 1989. The climate has changed. We never had such cold days, 45 degrees when we go to Mangalartik. Are you kidding me? In San Diego. When I came here in '89, I came from Miami, which also has extremes in weather. We've got to watch out for those hurricanes coming in, And it was January, but it was actually July. It was very hot and humid, So I come here and it's like, not that hot, you got the breezes coming off. And then as we moved into autumn, every day, 72 to 75, humidity's fine. I say, oh, this is Shangri-La, this is great. It's not like that quite anymore. We had a hurricane scare, which is kind of a joke, that hurricane, but still. Anyway, it's really, it's just things are getting more crazy out there. There's no shelter except for Krishna and Krishna's lotus feet and this process of devotional service. So please take it seriously and chant regularly. If you need beads, we can give you some. If they ran out, I have a bunch at home I can provide you. And take shelter of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, chanting Hare Krishna, coming to the temple, and become serious about developing a devotional service. And here we have a question here. Okay, but we have a mic. It's coming in about 2 seconds because we have some people online listening.
So I have a question for you. Like in 50 years or so, like you are saying you're with Krishna consciousness, ISKCON. So your faith was ever shaken, like during those times, like during all these years? And
no.
if it did, no?
I've been very fortunate. There's been a few rough spots, but never did I think, oh, did I make a wrong turn here? It's always that, oh, what did I do that for? Let me get back and, let me get straight, It hasn't, there's a challenge. There's always a challenge in devotional service. And Prabhupada would always quote this verse from Jagannatha Pandit. He was a very, very intimate servant of Lord Chaitanya. They were very close. And he wrote this book called Prema Vivarta. And he would say, this verse is so important. He says, Bahir mukha hai bhoga vanchakari nikatasamayatare japati yadari. When the living entity turns away from Krishna, desiring sense gratification, Maya is right there. It grabs him and tackles him and throws him down. She has these two coverings, Avaranatmaka Shakti and Prakshetatmaka Shakti. Avaranatmaka means to cover our knowledge. And then we're helpless, and then we get thrown down in Maya, in illusory energy. So you know, I'm not going to tell the whole story of how I came, but it was such a tremendous relief, actually, to join the movement. And I had the great fortune of becoming attracted to chanting Hare Krishna. And I didn't come right away. I got involved with these other groups, you know, and everything. But then finally I said, you know, because when I would be chanting and chanting, and I'd come into the yoga studio, and they'd say, okay, you got to stop chanting now, and now you're going to do this. I want to go to that place where you never have to stop chanting. So I came to the temple, and the more you chant, the more they like you. I remember this is my second day after I joined. I was taking out the trash, you know, this is Bhakti, you know, I was taking out the trash. And as I was doing that, I was singing Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So my boss, you know, the temple commander, he was saying, Tom, Bhakti Tom, my name was Tom. Tom, I think you're going to make it. I think you're going to make it, you know. Because as long as you accompany whatever you're doing with chanting Hare Krishna, it becomes blissful. So this is service to Krishna, you know, it's the pots or reading books, whatever you're doing. So I was fortunate, you know, that I never had any doubts about the philosophy of Prabhupada or anything like that. I had, you know, maybe some doubts, am I going to make it? But then I just said, okay, let's go out on Harinam, you know. I'm telling you, I came at the tail end of the period when there was hours and hours of Harinam for everybody. You know, you can imagine. Every day it was like at least 3 hours a day. You know, have to go out. I said, okay, fine, no problem. You know, so that was a tremendous source of you know, bliss and faith building and giving you. It just wiped away any doubts and things that you had. So that was my experience anyway.
What is the concept behind the 16 rounds? Why not 14 or 15?
The history of the 16 rounds. So, Prabhupada, when he came, the standard was, in the Gaudiya Math, 64 rounds. In fact, there's even a quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that if you can't chant 64 rounds, you're fallen, you're in Maya, you know. So Prabhupada, when he first started the devotees, you know, so there was some who wanted, you know, he wanted to get some devotees initiated. So, okay, we were initiated, so they had to carve their own beads and everything, you know, there was no... You can order them from Krishna.com. So anyway, so he said, okay, 64 rounds. All right, you know. So most of them are chanting, you know, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Can you imagine how long it takes to chant? 8 hours, 10 hours, you know, Hare Krishna. So they came back to Prabhupada, if you want us to do anything else, we're not going to be able to do 64 rounds. All right, 32. So they went back, 32, Hare Krishna. It's taking them half a day still, you know. So Prabhupada, okay, absolute minimum. 16. This is how he came down to 16. So he said, but on the Kadashi, you should chant more, like 25, you know, and gave like that. So devotees who, you know, very seasoned devotees, they increase the chanting, you know. So, but the 16 is good, 2 hours, it's good chanting. The quality is more important, you know, and then it matures into more quality, you know, quantity. The quality is more important. All right, any other comment, question? And I think we'll have a little kirtan. I'm sorry, I must have gone overtime so much. Oh, not yet. But we'll have a little kirtan till 7:15, and then the feast, and we'll like that. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Guru Krishna, Guru Krishna Prabhu, please. By the way, I want to thank you for being here. We understand you were going to Hawaii for the Ratha Yatra. Did they have the Ratha Yatra?
They have it on Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, tomorrow.
So it'll be tomorrow.
Oh, maybe you'll still make it.
But I'm not going to be able to fly over there
Okay.
and come back. Maybe next year or something. So you joined 50 years ago.
A little more.
And how old were you?
25.
25.
Yeah, I was old, comparatively speaking.
Well, there are many people in the room that, you know, are so young. Would you recommend that they start right away, or, and then the young people, do they have time? Should they start later in life? Because, you know.
No, that's what the Turnam is. Don't think that. Oh, okay, I'm young. You know, let me enjoy first. Then I'll chant Hare Krishna. That's the covering potency, Maya. It'll become, oh yeah, you know, I was interested when I was a kid, you know, but I grew out of it. I outgrew it. no. As soon as you get a little inspiration and understand the importance of it and the urgency, you should accept as many of the principles of the practice of devotional service as you can, and become serious and associate with the devotees. Try to come to kirtans and, as you're doing here at the feast, and associate as much as possible. Because we have to recognize that there's this other, mood in our mind that we've cultivated, which is non-Krishna consciousness. And we can easily go for that. And as we've seen, I've been in the movement, you've been around for many, many years. It's just a fact that we've had many devotees come and do important service, but they get deviated somehow, and then you don't see them. And that was happening during Prabhupada's time. You would get this phrase, their whereabouts are unknown. Because what happens is that when you slack off, you tend to commit offenses. I won't get into all the offenses of the holy name, Dham Aparad and Vaishnava Aparad. But these offenses, what happens is you lose your taste, you lose your interest in associating with devotees, and then you're helpless in material energy. So no, if you have any inspiration at all, cultivate that, chant, read, associate, so that you can deepen that commitment, so you can start, being more serious about devotion and get regulated like that. So don't postpone. No.
So I hear a lot of people, they say, I'm too old, I'm too set in my ways, I can't start anything new.
Yeah, that's Maya speaking. As Prabhupada would say, it's free. You can chant anywhere. Chant on the street. There's no expenditure. And the benefit is
I don't have time.
You don't have time, and you're walking from here to the it's just you have an excuse.
We stand in line half our lives, right? Right. You don't have time. You're standing in line. Just chant. Come on.
And the thing is, I look back and I'm so thankful of all of the disasters that I was able to, that Prabhupada protected me from. If you go back 50 years, you had all of these things, the AIDS epidemic, you had this drug coming in and going out, and so many of my acquaintances, you end up in jail, you're just trying to make some money, you get caught with some drugs, oh my God. And it's just so hazardous out there, If you think, I can, navigate, I got it together. Nobody has it together. Eventually Maya just slaps you down, and you suffer like anything. So this is, take shelter, Every day I have a series of verses that I chant before the deities. This is my one thing that I've tried to cultivate, just to come every day, every day. So I try, unless I'm sick or something or out of town. So we greet the deities, and then we come to and there's Jagannath deities, there's the last, and I've got these prayers. And one of them is a prayer for protection. Punnaga stapakana badnakesha jutak kotiri kratapatikekshi bhakshakutak payan ma madakata merudaksatandva kadandi tatatpanapsunatanva. Notice the wonderful elegance of the Sanskrit language. So he's describing punnaga stapaka. Oh Lord, you have these punnaga flowers in your hair, beautiful hair. Stapakana badnakesha jutak kotiri, and you're wearing a beautiful crown of exquisite peacock plumes, Then is the third line, the prayer. Payan Mam, please protect me, O Lord. Madakata Beidodaksatanva, body is beautiful like a sapphire. Kadandi Tatatapana Pasundatanva, you who are dancing so gracefully on the shore of the Yamuna. So he's describing Krishna, in beautiful, exquisite ways, but there's a prayer in there, please protect me. And this one that I've been how should I say, advertising lately. There's so many nice boat verses in the Bhagavatam. I'll just share it with you, then I'll end now because it's getting late. Okay, very good. So what Krishna speaks, I think 11th canto, Uddhava Gita, Nidehamadyam sulabam suburdurlabam, klavam sukalpam gurukarna dharam, mayanukulena nabasviteditam puman bhavabdim nataretsa atmaha. Prabhupada wrote this verse. So Nirdeha means human form of life is a very nicely, how should I say, with so many features, a boat for crossing over the ocean of birth and death. And then it's a play on words. Sulabham, Sudulabham. They're opposites. Sulabham means difficult to attain. So easy to attain, and Durlabham means difficult to attain. Well, how does that work out? This is Krishna speaking. Must have some deep meaning. Yes, so Sulabham means you automatically get it. In other words, you come up the species, up, and we all come. We've been human beings before. You know, we blew it. So now, take advantage. So you come up. So that's Sulabham. But Sudurlabham is rare. There's 8 billion, big deal. 8 billion human beings on the planet. There's probably 8 billion termites, you know, on this block. You know? In other words, existentially, we're both spirit souls. But we have the great value of having the human form of life. So Sulabham Sudurlabham. So that's the boat, is this body. But we need a captain. Plavam Sukalpam is a very nicely constructed boat. This human body. This is a machine. Guru Karnadaram. The guru, the bona fide spiritual master preceptor, in the line coming down from Lord Chaitanya, he is the competent captain of the ship to guide us. We need that, you know. But then, if we don't have favorable winds, we're just going to be becalmed in the waters. So Krishna says, I have provided the winds. Maya Anukulina, the Vedic literatures, which ultimately come from Krishna, you know, through Vyasadeva, and they were his words, Bhagavad Gita especially. There's the favorable wind. So now we have three things. We have the competent boat, right? We have the good captain, and we have the favorable winds. Puman bhavabnim nataret sa atmaha. That human being who doesn't cross over the ocean of birth and death, bhavabdim, is committing virtual spiritual suicide. Atmaha. Of course, the soul is eternal. But why prolong the agony? Take advantage of it. And then there's one more, and then I'll end because we're getting late. So this one is not so well known. The end of the 4th chapter of the 12th canto. Who's read that far? So there's a chapter all about different annihilations. You know, our own death is a big annihilation for us, right? But there's also Brahma's death. There's 4 or 5 of them. Very scary, you know, kind of a sobering chapter. So at the end of the chapter, he gives this beautiful verse about the ship. He said, Sangsara sindhamati dustanamurti tirshor nanyak plavo bhagavatak purushottamasya lilakata vasanishevanamantadenam puman bababdin pungso bhaved vivadaduka dabharditasya. So he has both analogies in there. He has the ocean of birth and death and the forest fire of Maya. That was Sangsara Davarnalida Loka, Chonai. Those who know come to Mangalarti. So here he says, Sangsara sindham, the ocean of samsara, Ati Dustanam, very difficult to cross over. But Utti Tirshur, for those who are eager to cross over it, there's no other boat but cultivating the taste for hearing the all-attractive Leela of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, those pastimes can enthrall us so much and take us back. And for human beings who are suffering in all the miseries of the fire of material life. So we should take advantage of this boat, and in all different ways, and get on a good ship, ISKCON. ISKCON is also compared to a boat, and it can take you across. Yeah. Okay, so we'll adjourn now, and we'll have a nice little kirtan. Oh, we have our announcements. I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming.